Shabbos Pashas Beshalach, B'siyata D'Shmai, Shabbos Pashas Beshalach, Tu B'Shvat, h'tshk Beis. I made copies, you saw it. K'mi Tzeischo Beretz Mitzrayim, Maran Niflois, right? So that, like the days when they're in Mitzrayim, I'll show him wonders. It's going to be a diuk. But Tzarich Lahavin, Oimrei Tchila Tzeischo Loshen Noichach. The person begins with Tzeischo, you're going out, second person. Then he ends with the third person, him. But the matter is as follows. The long tip, there's two Maimorim. He's referring to, it means the long one of the Mittel Rebbe. So he brings there in his longer Maimer, Mashakosa B'Zoyar, that which the Zohar says. Maya Reno, what does it mean? I'll show him. Ela Reno, but it means I'll show him Lahu Sova, this elder, Chochem, the Choza, the Kadmisa that had seen originally. Now you'll see again. And then I'll show him, and I'll show now, but I said, I'll show him the Niflois. So who is that? Who's Sova? Ksiv, Yisrael Mitzrayim, Yisrael saw the great hand. The Medrash actually says that Yisrael refers to Yaakov. And this is not the Medrash he brings, I'm just telling you that there's a Medrash that says on here, Yisrael saw the elder, that's Yaakov Avinu, and he saw, just like he saw that he went down to Mitzrayim in his time, so he saw also what happened, the Makkas and the Tzias Mitzrayim. But here, it's a little bit different. Meaning, let's see, so the Pasuk says the Yidden saw the great hand. Behind meaning, so that which it says, I'll show him wonders, it goes on this elder, Yisrael Sova, which is now refers to Yidden, all of them are B'Kriyas Yamsuf, about in the singular, about which it says by Kriyas Yamsuf, Hayag Yisrael Seyad Agdoila, Yisrael Mamash. It's interesting because Yisrael Mamash, he says, see the Zohar now Parsha. That means Mamash Yisrael, as in Yaakov. But he teaches it's Yidden at the level of Yisrael. It's both. It's Yidden and Yisrael, and physically Yaakov. But the point being, this Yisrael now, that saw Yitzias, that saw the Yod HaGdoila, so Kashiyah lost it love, Bechinas Hagadlos, the Zikna. Then when Yisrael will, then they'll be. Let's go back here. So here the touch is like this. It's interesting. That Yisrael by Kriyas Yamsov becomes Yisrael Sova Loset Lavoi. And they come to Bechinas Gadlos, the Zikna, but here Nikri so Sova, then Areno Niflois, I'll show him wonders in the plural, Lashon Rabbim. Sheir Niflois, Gdoilis, V'Rabbis Yoser. He'll see much greater than Niflois. Before he goes into that, the previous sin, let's get this straight. So the Zohar is saying, why does it say, I will first you and then I'll show him? Because who is the one being shown later? The one that saw in the first place, by Yah Yisrael Seyad Agdoila, that's Yisrael. So he's saying here that Yisrael then will become not young Yisrael, but the elder Yisrael, Yisrael Sova, that's what's going to be Lasid Lavoi. And he's at the level of Yisrael Sova, Yisrael the elder, the Chacham, the wise. Then Yidden will see the union of the flows. So what is it? What's it? So it's the Aliyah of Yisrael from the Yod Agdola to the floors. Aliyas Amidus the Zoh. So the subject matter here is Zoh. Israel. Israel is a reference to Zoh. So Yidden will have an Aliyah Lasid Lavai. What's in the floors? Ad B'chinas HaKesed. That Lasid Lavai, there'll be the Re'iyah seeing the level of Kesed. And that is greater than by Kriyas Yamsov. That's why there's a similar parallel. By Kriyas Mitzrayim, this Re'iyah was Kriyas Yamsov. Lasid Lavai Yiyah B'Kriyas Hanor. And Lasid Lavai, the river will split, which is a higher level of seeing, as he explains right now. If you are the Lana Hashem, will wave his hand over the river, and smite it in the 7 streams. That's higher still. What's the different levels of Re'iyah, or the Aliyah of Yisrael, namely Zoh, the Midas, Eden. Yisrael embraces all the different levels. That's like the 7 branches of the menorah. All the different Avodas, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, all the levels of Neshamas. Zoh. Malchus is where they all gather and then are invested in the Lamhazeh. But the Neshamas themselves, like Malchus says, Machshava Dibur Ma'aseh, that's already the expression. But Yisrael is the Neshamas themselves. So the Neshama. So by Kriyas Yamsov was what? Kriyas Yamsov Shebechnes Malchus Datzilus. What split? The ocean, which covers the ocean floor. That's Malchus that conceals Atzilus. So the ocean split. They saw what's within, as it were. What is that ocean there? That's in Yondi. B'Kriyas Parsa Mafsek has been Atzilus Tabiyah. That's the Parsa, the veil, the screen that separates. Separates Atzilus and Biyah. So that's what. So what do they experience? An Aliyah from Biyah, in other words, to Atzilus. Okay, it's two. We learned 2 days with the Tzamshach Aliyah, but he speaks here Aliyah. Mashenkin because Hanor, but the splitting of the river, which is Lasid Lavai, Pchinas Bina. The Nor is Bina because the river flows and expands. So to the nature of Bina, which flows from Chochmah, which is like a river flows from a spring. So the spring is Chochmah, as we learned many Maimorim, and the Nohar is Bina. So then the river splits. That's P'kiyas HaParsa Shemapsek. It's been HaMoichin L'Midas. That is the split between Moichin and Midas. Not Atzilus, but between Moichin and Midas. Bina opens up.
That's in Atzilus.
In Atzilus Gufa, yeah. And that's why he strikes at the 7 streams. Connected Zaina Midas, that that's the Aliyah of the Midas where in Moichin. Now he said before, Keser, he'll explain it. Now he's saying it's the Aliyah of the Midas in Moichin. Before he said that the Lasid Lavai, higher than Moichin. So we're going to see. Yeah, we're clear in the outline, the technicality, the Bira Indian. An explanation is in the Indian Amidus Bechinas Zoyesh Bechlolus Gima Madreges. There's 3 levels of Midas in general. Madrege ha'alef, he speaks l'mayla. Madrege ha'alef kifish nimshachem b'biyah. So the first level of the Midas is the way they're drawn into biyah, meaning the Midas of Atzilus. She's drawn into biyah. Shezeu al-derech ha'midas shebe'odam kifish nimshachem b'machshava dibur ma'aseh. Right? So the Midas are drawn into biyah via Malchus. Malchus is machshava dibur ma'aseh and expressed in biyah. So that's similar to a person expressing his midas in thought or speech or action. Just as in parenthesis, it's sometimes people confuse machshava and bina. It's not the same thing. thought is a garment, just like dibur is clearly a garment, and action is a garment that you invest something in, and a word is a garment that we invest meaning to. And so too thought. Thought is also language. It's a very intimate garment, but it's a vehicle by which our faculties of intellect are expressed. There's language there. Now, there's very high levels of machshava too. There's virtually no oisius at all. But there is some kind of oisius, a very sublime oisius. There's some kind of language. At any rate, which means that it can be expressed in different languages. The thought itself is not the language. The thought's expressed in language. The same idea can be said in another tongue, literally. So it's a levush pnimi, and it's very close, and it's always working. You're always thinking because it's very bound up with the nefesh itself. But it's a levush. At any rate, so the lower level is the midas invested in, expressed in biyah. Human parallel is the midas expressed, either he's thinking what he's feeling, or saying it, expressing it, or acting upon it. So sheheim, now the machshava dibur ma'aseh beprati is shekeneg them gimel elmas biyah. In fact, the three elements correspond to the three levushim of a person. Bria is bechinas machshava, yitzira bechinas dibur, and asiya bechinas ma'aseh. That's one level. But clear? Madrega habe is the second level. As they are natzilus. And how? What are they referred to? They refer to as ze'er anpin, which means small faces. A face means pnimius. So there's a gilui of the pnimius of Lekosia, but in a small way. That's what it means, and that's what we refer to as zod atzilus. So that is zel b'chinas Yisrael zuta. That's the lower level of Yisrael, as opposed to Yisrael sova, the elder, the mature level. So Yisrael zuta, in summary, is where is the midas and atzilus. Yeah, we're clear. The third oif and kfisha, this is lost love. Kfisha in b'chinas harotzon. Here, the midas is going to explain are elevated and expressive of their root, which is the rotzen. When the rotzen is expressed in the midas, or the midas expressed the rotzen, which you'll elaborate upon. So here there's an aliyah, not just referring to the midas in Atzilus, but the midas and in Atzilus is implying even in Moishe, which we'll elaborate soon, because he said before that the piki of the Nohar. So this is the aliyah of the midas into Moishe. Now he's saying it's arich. He'll explain that there's a level of arichanpin with Abchinas Yisrael Sova, and that is the highest level of Yisrael, that Yisrael the elder, as the midas are expressive of arichanpin of the rotzen of the Eibishter. These are just words which require explanation. Let's begin. It starts with it starts here, it looks like. Okay, so let's go. To understand the difference between the second level. The first level, okay, so it's the midas expressed in biyah, the parallel of the midas that the person expresses in thought, speech, or action. But the second level, what's the difference between the second and third? We have levels, but what is it? What's the difference? So the difference between madrega beis and midas k'vishem b'mkoimo. The difference between the midas, the way they're on their place, we said that Yisrael zut, that's atzilus. Huh? And the difference between that level madregi hagimol amidus kvishen bepchines harotzon, the midas as they are expressive or bound up or connected to the rotzon yisrael sova. Understand it meaning amidish ba'adam. We'll understand this by understanding the midas within a person, right? As we are all a reflection of the Maila. Statement number one, a very important statement. The essence of the midas is I want. I want. So I want chesed. I want to express chesed. I want to express gvura, different emotional states. But at their core, it's all the expression of the person's desire. That's what he wants. It will explain. There's two levels of rotzen. Boloshen HaZoyar, as the Zoyar says, is rotzen, there is rotzen, vis rotzen, and there is rotzen, implying two levels. I actually looked up, look at the Torah in Shirashirim there. I don't think there's such a place where it's in there where it says Israel and Visrat, such a lotion. They looked up the back of look at the Torah and they sent us to our order of the Rebbe on Sif Mabarim Tovshin Tes, whatever, who sends to a Zoyar, which is not explicit there. It's not explicit. So whatever, Tzorech Ian, because he says here Loshen HaZoyar, at any rate. Point being, that's just an aside. The point being that there's two levels of rotzen. Let's talk about midas now. So there's the kind of midas that come from intellect. So then, so that's a lower level of rotzen. Meaning, the intellect appreciates the value of something or how fearful it is. There, the desire is born of chesed to acquire it, be close, or gvura, stay far away, right? So the will is born from the intellect. So that's a rod. Why do you want? Because you understand it. You understand. That's explaining why you want to be close or far. Chesed or gvura. The seichel is what gives birth to the desire of this midah. Therefore, on this level, that's classic. This is classic midas of a mature adult. You understand? You want. Well, it can be also immature. So he's going to want different things. Sometimes he wants like this, and sometimes the seichel says no. Better the other things. He wants the other thing. As the intellect appreciates, has a different perspective and a different reason, and so he'll express a different emotion. The two classics of the will change accordingly of the midas to chesed, the gvura. He'll want to again be close or far. That's one level of rotzen. But then there's a midas chesed gvura which is not born from intellect. The essence of the midas is the person's will and desire. So this is expressive of a rotzen that's hidden seichel. This will didn't come as a result of an intellectual appreciation of becoming aware and understanding. No, he's hardwired. He's hardwired to want certain things and to want to be close to certain things and want to reject certain things or stay far. Not born of seichel level, but teva b'nefesh adam. It's in the teva of a person. That's what, and therefore the seichel will go that way. Because there's an innate desire for whatever it is. That's because that's how his nefesh is wired. Therefore, he's going to want it. Therefore, he's going to understand the virtue of it. Then he's going to feel for it. That's how it works. That's a rotzen which is higher than Tzeischo. I want. Therefore, the Tzeischo will justify the want, and that will give birth to the desire, the chesed, the gevurah. And it will manifest a loving of it or fearful of it, and then the machshava dibur ma'aseh. The first level is, no, it's a rotzen that's born from intellect to begin with, and subject to change constantly. As the intellect grows and the situations changes, agendas change. But the higher level is a rotzen that's rooted in his actual teva, which is not subject to change. But let's continue. We have to understand. So we're saying now that the midas, that's just Yisrael Sova. So there's the lower Yisrael, lower midas born from intellect. Yisrael Sova, not born from intellect, but from the Rotz. So you have to understand the reason that the midas, as they are b'chinas harotzen, as they are as expressive of the rotzen of the nefesh, higher than Tzeischo. So we call it Ikra B'Shem Yisrael Sova. This is called Yisrael Sova, Yisrael the elder. What's the question? The Lechura Kivin should be the Seilahem B'Chinas Ratzon Shalom Ma'alim HaSeichel. We're saying now that the midas come here, they're bad some higher than Tzeischo. Tzeischo just justifies it. But the midas are there, independent of the Tzeischo from the Rotzen, Poshet of the Nefesh. Lo Mon Ikra B'Shem Sova, but elder means Chacham. Shemoyer al dinyan ha-moichin, that Sova conveys the dinyan of moichin. K'mayim Sova, like the Zohar says, we've encountered this, datoihi sosir. His mind is hidden, is closed. It means a virtue. So he has a seichel that the average person cannot grasp. It's beyond. Stimis ha-moichin. Moichin stima. So the question is that Sova goes on seichel. Now we're talking about what? A rotzen that's higher than Tzeischo. So why is it called Yisrael Sova? Another term. So there is epis even in the rotzen that is higher than conscious Tzeischo. Apparently, he's going to say there is some element of Tzeischo. What kind of Tzeischo is that in this rotzen? Binyan Bazeh, you have questions clear? Yeah. You have the Maimah, yeah? Is Gimel?
Yeah,
You're there, yeah. Even the midas as they are in the rotzen, yeshtam shayches in moichin. It's still a connection to moichin, even though it's beyond chachma bina das. But there's a moichin there. What level? What is that? Gamba midas mitzad etzem harotzen shel ma'alem haseichel matzinu sheyesh ischalkos v'shinuyim. We don't find, I said before, it's not subject to change, but we do find that even the rotzen that's higher than seichel, we still see that there's division and change. She'ein kol ha'itim shovim b'ofen gili harotzen. Even this kind of midas are not always the same. Shel pamim yigili harotzen b'kav shel chesed. Sometimes it'll be through chesed, the pamim kav shel gvura, v'chayotze b'zeh. So we see even in the irrational will that expresses itself in emotion. So these emotions differ. We need explanation here to describe these different emotions and this rotzen. It'll become clear as we learn further somewhere. So if there's a change, there's got to be a reason for the change. It causes the change. And what's the cause of the change? They will change the rotzen.
How it's the gil.
Yeah, it's the gilia of the rotzen. The etzem rotzen, there's no level of meichen there at all. But the gilia of the rotzen, yeah. So just like midas that are clearly coming from seichel, There it's clear and obvious that a different appreciation, different understanding engenders a different midah. One second. Yeah, no, the sentence ends. He's saying that we see that the rotz, which is higher than seichel, has changed, just like the midas, which is lower than seichel, changes based on a different appreciation. Now back to the midas l'maylim and seichel. V'haino sh'af apisha midas elu, the higher level midas now. Hey mitzad harotz and sh'lamaylim seichel, they're not born from intellect but from rotz and she'ein seichel v'tam l'rotz, and pure will is not the rational thing. Mikol molkim, nonetheless, there is a level within the will, gam l'rotz and zeh yesh tam komos, a hidden reason. There is some kind of agenda, but it's hidden even from the person himself. Even himself, he cannot explain the reason, but there's a reason. The reason is concealed. So, very subtle, fine distinction with drawing a distinction between the etzem harotza, which starts with me, and it's nothing to do with the world around me. But here, it's taka rotzen. But if we're saying there's a hidden reason, what does it mean? A hidden reason means already a kind of a negotiation with the world outside, which will then determine the nature of the will. It's not a conscious thing; it's subconscious, but it's still there's a traceable cause outside the person why he wants this. It's environmentally induced on some level, but in a very, very superconscious way. As opposed to the etzem harotzen mamish. Etzem harotzen will be the will to live. The will to live is not induced by the environment at all. That's purely essential. But here the rotzen is going to manifest in a chesed or a gevura. It's not just I'm chesed, I'm gevura. There's something in the world on a very subtle level outside him that is inducing him to have this rotzen, even though he doesn't have a conscious reason. But there is a reason. There is a reason out there. And therefore, it can be changed. Situation changes, there can be a change. So let's conclude the sentence. V'tam komus zeh. And it's this hidden reason, and not conscious to him, not a rational thing that he can explain to you. But it's hasibel hashinuyim ba'ifin gilei harotzen. But that will explain why his will manifests and changes. Mischalik lechesed or legvura. We'll finish the paragraph. So that will answer our question. Technically, at least, we need further explanation. We'll answer our question why the level of the midas as they are expressive of the rotzen are still connected to sova. There's some level of rationale. Even rotzen, which is higher than seichel, looks like it's irrational, but a good psychologist, will probe and probe. It's not so irrational. It's a tam komos, but it's so deep that even the person himself isn't aware of it. And that's the chachmas timah. That's the, to be elaborated further, the hidden chachma, not the manifested chachma of arich anpin. Arich in general is rotzen. Arich is in general the rotzen. But in that rotzen is this subtle level of chachma. As opposed to atik, where we can't even speak of chachmas timah. That's much of etzem hanefesh. But arich, which is rotzen, there is a subtle level of chachma there, and therefore there is a subtle level of a reason for a behavior that externally appears to be irrational and just the way the person is, but it's not so. There is something there, the reason, therefore there can be a change, a very deep therapy. You get down to that reason and change. Okay, then we're speaking about on the level of therapy, but we get the point as it applies to Maila and it applies to the Nefesh in general. So continue Beis Hashem tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday, so tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Be'ezrat Hashem.